Got on my leather jacket Thriller. The show ain't nothing iller. Man, I'm a lady killer. If I want her, I'ma steal her. I promise I can make her fly away like caterpillars. So if you don't know by now, then you should probably get familiar.
Hey everybody, welcome to Ask the Expert. I'm Leticia Remauro from the Vaughn Agency, and I am joined by my partner, George Passariello. George, you look good. You look colorful. I look blue.
I feel like crap, but looking good is good. I have my black tape eyeglasses running for this episode because they broke just before. So.
Well, we've had an exciting week. You broke your glasses. I have poison ivy on my face. I don't know how I got it. We've got a lot of ailments going on, and on top of everything else, I'm blue. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, for whatever reason, this lighting is giving me a blue effect. But we all know that the truth is I'm red. So this is not a political commentary. But today we have a great guest coming on that he will join us shortly. His name is Vito Bruno. He is in the music industry and has been for many years. He's a well-known businessman and entrepreneur. And he is running for state senate in Brooklyn in the 22nd district. And that's a seat that we know pretty well, don't we, George?
Yeah, we sure do. That was Marty Golden's old seat. And, I personally would love to see Vito take that seat back from the Democrats. Not that I have anything against Democrats. This was just a little too socialist for me. So it'd be great to have Vito take a win there.
Well, I mean, listen, we know one thing is that the Senate had a margin of, it was the only Republican House, right? We had a Democrat governor, Democrat assembly, and then a Republican Senate for many, many years. And so the Senate kind of balanced out. Oh, I hear feedback again. Darn it. I know.
Lower your volume. That should
lower my volume. Okay, I'm going to lower my volume. Last time when my volume was too low, people couldn't hear me. But we had a Republican Senate that balanced out the assembly and I think brought some sanity to New York State. But as soon as the Republicans lost, and the IDA was, just for everybody to know, there was an independent body of Democrats that would conference with the Republicans that kept the House in Republican control, or the Senate in Republican control. But the IDA members all lost their seats except for one, Diane Savino. And the Democrats took control of the Senate. And the first thing they did was they passed bail reform. They passed late-term abortion. And they passed many, many other bills that have affected New Yorkers to, in my opinion, the negative. But they've been waiting to pass those bills for years. And so now there is an opportunity for the Republicans to take back the Senate. And there are some competitive seats. And we think that the 22nd is one of them. And Vito Bruno is a really good candidate for that seat, right, George?
Yeah, he's a Brooklyn guy. He's been there forever. He's been doing business in Brooklyn. He understands the community, and he's just a nice guy. I mean, we full disclaimer, we've done work with Vito before in the past on concerts, and he's just been a pleasure. So I adore Vito. I think he's got a really good view on Brooklyn and a good view on the district. And I know if he wins that district will be better off.
Well, the interesting thing about Brooklyn, about the 22nd district, well, first of all, I was born there. So that's a plus. And many people think I'm a native Staten Islander. I consider myself almost native, but you have to be born here to be native. But I did come across when I was 17 years old. I left Brooklyn at age 11, went to Florida, and then came to Staten Island at 17. I joked that my parents wanted to avoid the tolls, so we came through Florida. But Brooklyn is a really diverse district, but it's a great place. It was an Italian stronghold for many years, but now it is a true melting pot of Arab, Iraq, Iranian, Chinese, Jewish.
Some of the greatest food, I go there to eat all the time because of that new variety, that new mix, which I love. You can get Turkish food, and across the street you can get Chinese food, and down the block you can go to one of the best Italian restaurants you ever had in your life. So I love it. I think it's a great district, fun shopping.
It's an amazing place, and of course, it's where Saturday Night Fever was filmed, and so many other films. And Vito will talk to us a little bit about that, because during his time in the music industry, he's met quite a few famous people, and he's worked with them, and he can tell us some of those stories. But the thing about Brooklyn is there's a lot of home ownership in that district, in the 22nd district. And so great shopping, a lot of small businesses. Retail is still alive and kicking. Those mom and pop shops are still there and thriving in that area of Brooklyn. So we have people that are really focused on making sure that the quality of life in Brooklyn remains at a high standard. And I think lately, that's been slipping along with the rest of New York City. They've had their share of protests, and there was a bad protest, or there was a bad incident, a clash, let's say, of protesters this past weekend in Brooklyn, where there were pro-police, a pro-police march was taking place, and the anti-protest police, I guess, or the defund the police group was there, and punches were thrown, eggs were thrown, vomit was thrown, excrement.
I think it was Antifa, to be honest with you, but who knows? It's hard to tell these days whether it was defund or Antifa, because Antifa is really great at hiding that. But unfortunately, it did get a little squirrely, right? You were there. You could speak better than me.
Well, I wasn't to the one, the one this Sunday. I was on Wednesday. I was part of the prayer march that was hosted by my little brother Tony Herbert, amongst other clergy and community activists, and it was a prayer march for unity. And what they said over and over again was community is unity, and that was the message they were trying to send. We were all trying to send, and we had a fantastic showing of clergy, of members of churches all throughout Brooklyn and Queens and Bronx. We had members of the Sergeants Benevolent Association's family members. We had NYPD off-duty and retirees. We had Army, Navy, military. It was just a fantastic mix of people on every color, every nationality, every religion, Jewish, Baptist. We all marched together for unity. And the focus of the march was to bring attention to the gun violence that's taking place right now, and the fact that we're losing children. Children are being shot in the streets.
Was it a 22-month-old? I forgot. It was a 1-year-old.
A 1-year-old. Well, he was a little older than one, and he was shot in his carriage. The family was having a little picnic, and he was shot in his carriage. We lost a 7-year-old. We lost a 12-year-old. We lost a 19-year-old. So many children have been killed in the last 2 months that it's heartbreaking. And the reason for the march was because the young boy that was shot in Brooklyn, nobody in the community would step forward to name the shooter, even though plenty of people saw him. Instead of going forward and bringing, the name out and going to the police, the community decided that they were going to lay back and not give over the name. And so therefore, nobody was ever arrested in that.
You know what? Vito just joined the stream. I'm going to bring him in. Might as well.
Oh, yeah, we might as well. Our candidate for our guest, Vito Bruno, is in.
Hi, everybody. How are you today?
Pretty
Hey,
good,
Vito.
Vito. How you doing?
Good to see you again.
It's good to have you, and welcome to the Vaughn Agency Acts the Expert. And you are the expert in many, many things, and we're going to quiz you on that. Vito, you might want to tilt your screen a little bit so that you're centered, and there you go. Excellent. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we see all those great plaques on your wall behind you. We were just talking about the Unity March. Vito, you were there on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that turned into a free-for-all. And we wound up having some police officers injured. There were arrests made, but two of the people who had hit the police officers in the head with a bat were left free without bail. And Vito, we talked earlier before you joined us. That the Senate has long been controlled by the Republicans, and then as Republicans lost seats, the IDA was giving the Republicans the majority. And then in 2018, when Marty Golden lost the seat that you're running for, the IDA. All the IDA members, save one, were voted out of office, and the Democrats took control. And the first thing they did was pass bail reform, which basically lets criminals let criminals out of jail, and also late-term abortion. I mean, super late-term abortion. And for anybody that knows me knows I'm pro-choice, but I can't get behind the late-term abortion. I think that was terrible. So, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as a businessman and your career, and why you're running for the seat?
I grew up in Brooklyn, in Bensonhurst. It was known as the last dirt road in Brooklyn. And I went to, public schools. I went to, Sethville out in my district. And then I went to the specialized high schools, Brooklyn Tech, which I know they're trying to dumb down the entrance exam on that. Then I studied architecture in school over there. I was lucky enough to go to Pratt Institute, and just a funny little story. At the Pratt Institute, I wound up getting picked up by Marcel Breuer firm, architectural firm, which was the pinnacle of the architectural world at that time. And they would go around and they would pick, the best designers from each school. And the kid who was sitting next to me at Brooklyn Tech, he went to Cooper Union, which was the #1 architecture school. And I went to Pratt Institute, which was the #2 architecture school in the world at the time. Show up first day at Marcel Breuer, and who's sitting next to me? The same kid that was sitting next to me at Brooklyn Tech. That tells you how great that school was and how great those teachers were. But just go back a little bit. When I started through college, I started working in nightclubs. It was 2001 Odyssey, and they made a movie called Saturday Night Fever. And I wound up being in the middle of the focal point of the entertainment world by accident, just because I was a kid, and it was my first gig. And then I worked myself up at night, doing the nightclub stuff, and I wound up owning my own nightclub, and we got help by Andy Warhol and crew to promote that, and then we went on to do several other clubs. We were at the beginnings of the hip hop world at a place called the Roxy. We did the Palladium, the Tunnel. We did a lot of the great clubs. And during that time, we see a lot of the acts come through, and some are very talented and they disappear, and some are marginally talented and they become superstars. And my campaign manager won't let me say names, so I'm not going to say no names.
He's a smart man.
He's brilliant. But so we started getting interested in why. So we started managing the talent, and we started making the records. And we were lucky. We had in Billboard approximately 50 #1 records on the Billboard dance charts. We kind of dominated the charts for quite some time. We were running all the nightclubs, and then we started getting into the marketing end of it. We wound up marketing the talent, and then started getting involved with the radio stations, and we started marketing the radio stations and doing the big radio station concerts with those multiple acts in arenas. We did that for quite some time. I was involved with a bunch of radio stations that we did marketing and partnership deals with, and that's been the career. It's started in architecture, wound up in marketing, promotion, and talent management, and making records, and we even did a couple of movies.
So let me ask you something. How does that prepare you to get to Albany, to be in the Senate in Albany, to protect the people of the 22nd district? What talents have you picked up as a business person and in your background that are going to help you there?
Well, it takes you all the way back to my design school days. You are trained in design school to think out of the box, and you have to analyze every problem back down to its basic core. And right now, everybody's putting Band-Aids on things. Oh, this problem, let's throw money at it. Oh, there's a problem. And they come up with these superficial responses, by throwing money at things that don't address the core and root of the problem. And then once you're trained to think out of the box, you're not confined by the traditional means of solving an issue. So I think just that one thing, and I learned from design school. And the second thing, I learned from being in business, and from when you operate venues and you have to fill seats, you have to listen to the people, because if you don't listen to them and understand exactly what they want, not what you want, then you can't serve the people. You have a venue, you want to put a type of music you want, nobody else wants. You're sitting there with 5,000, 10,000 empty seats. So you have to really listen. I got that listening, talent. Not talent. I learned my lesson by getting my butt handed to me by not listening to people when I was much younger. So you listen and you come up, try to get to see what people say and what they really mean are not usually the same thing. We've learned.
Well, I think listening is an important talent, and I feel like a lot of the elected officials who are in office right now are not listening to their constituency, or they're listening to the loudest voices, but not to what is really needed, and that critical thinking that business people need to succeed, I think is going to be a great boon for you. How many people have you employed over the years, Vito?
Over the years, through all the venues, with things, hundreds of people over the decades, while we've worked with, and some events, some of the bigger concerts have, more than 100 on staff for the event. It's, for the thing and leading up to it. So we've done hundreds of people over the decades.
So and these,
we understand, which a lot of these people that are politicians never had a business. They never had to put their money where their mouth is. They're able to put somebody else's money where where their mouth is, but not their own. When you're in business, it's like, okay, you spend $1, you got to make $2. You can't spend $1, and where's that come from? It's coming from this guy over there. It doesn't quite work. Business is, government is business at the end of the day.
Well, it's true, because New York City is a corporation, but unfortunately it's run like a piggy bank. It's not run like a corporation.
Yeah, I'm an ATM machine.
Truly. So tell us about, Albany. Now, first I want to say hi to Dawn Marie. Dawn Marie has joined us, so say hi to her. So tell Dawn Marie and everyone else that's watching us. So you're going to go to Albany. You're going to bring the business perspective. You're going to bring the critical thinking to get the things done. What are the issues that you're going to focus on?
Well, right now, the main things right now is we have an affordability crisis out here with the homeowners and the renters. We have a transportation issue. We have the R train. My opponent's spending $250,000 on it, and a study of why the R train is late. And guess what? It's still late. $250,000 later, we still have a problem. Infrastructure is an issue out here. Right now, I think the number one thing with people is safety. Everybody's afraid. The whole defunding the NYPD was a terrible idea. The bail reform, which my opponent voted for, is a bad idea. You have people that arrested 100. One kid got arrested 105 times and comes out and slaps some 92-year-old lady down. The chief of police gets cracked with a pipe trying to protect bishops and ministers from coming across the bridge in a peaceful rally, and the guy he's arrested and released. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So bail reform was probably one of the worst things that occurred, not only in New York State, but across many, many states. This was something the movement was funded by George Soros and the Vera Institute. And, the thought process was that there were too many people, black and brown people, languishing in jail, too many poor people languishing in jail because they didn't have enough money to bail themselves out. But as we learned from one of our other guests, Michelle Esquenazi, who was the head of the Bail Bondsman Association for New York State, people can't bail themselves out. It's a family member or a friend that has to bail you out. And so it was, a bunch of bullshit that was fed to the public by saying that poor people are languishing in jail and that their only crime was, being poor. The truth is that many of the people that were in jail and not out on bail weren't bailed out because their parents, their family, or whomever wanted them to stay there because either they had enough or they didn't want them, they needed to dry out from drug addiction. There's so many reasons why people were in jail that stayed in jail that weren't bailed out. But that bail reform, now we see once they open the floodgates and let all of not only those who were arrested out, but those who were in jail and convicted, they let out. And what's going on in the streets now?
And then you couple that with the losing of the crime. One of the police department, what do they call them?
The anti-crime
guys. They're gone. So you have police being defunded, bail reform, the anti-crime guys gone, people being let out of jail. There's no accountability whatsoever anywhere. There's no fear of the police. There's no respect for the police. When I was a kid, you respected the police. It was common sense. These are the people that protect us. We need them. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, and don't judge one. Listen, we all know that George Floyd sparked this off, but just like one bad cop doesn't represent. There's bad teachers, there's bad doctors, there's bad lawyers, as our friend Sam Prizzola likes to say, right, Leticia? There's bad in every place. It's how we react to it and how we take care of it. I think, people are making a mistake and it's overcorrecting, and it's going to hurt us really bad.
And hijacking a good point.
Well, in California, the teachers union refuses to go back to teaching kids unless the California defunds the police. What? How did that happen? And the fact that they're pulling police officers, or the school systems around the country are taking police out of the schools, is, to me, the most nonsensical, asinine thing that can happen. Because how do you learn about authority and about how to act with the police unless you interact with them? When a kid is fearful of the police, or someone doesn't have an interaction with someone of another nationality or religion or anything, there's a natural fear of interacting with them. So if the reason that we put the police in the schools in the first place was to create a bond between the community and the police at a young age. Now they're taking the police out of school. What do we think is going to happen when a police says, I need you to go stand over there and put your hands on the wall? Do we think we're going to get more respect from young people? When that happens? No. They're going to mouth off, and then we're going to have more trouble than we ever had before. It just doesn't make sense. But at the end of the day, frankly, I've said it here, I said it everywhere. I think that this is not necessarily this movement has been hijacked, and what we're witnessing now is a Marxist movement to overthrow our government. And I think that they're winning, and we can't allow that to happen. The good people of America, who, yes, want to improve the way things are, need to actually stand up and call this what it is, and it's Marxism.
Yeah. Yes. That unfortunately once you stand up and say something that is not 100% acceptable by the other side, you are attacked, you're called racist, you're called everything. People are losing their jobs, their homes, their businesses, because they just don't agree. And it's not that they're saying anything negative. They're not white supremacists. There's nothing wrong except speaking the truth, and people are getting their lives destroyed. And that's why we're having a problem. Trying to fight it.
Yeah.
And that's such a dangerous thing too, Vito, right? I mean, you remember, you and I are about the same age. We weren't really, we weren't alive during the time, but the McCarthy era, when Joe McCarthy was just grilling people, labeling them as Russian sympathizers, and
he was eliminating political rivals with that tool, and it's going to happen again.
Yes, it is happening.
And it can't be good, right? It can't be good for the country, because it wasn't good then when Joe McCarthy was doing it, and it's not good now, because you have to have different points of view. And the one thing that is so important for these young Marxists to understand is, well, if they're successful and they get the America they want, where you can't say what's in your heart and mind, and you can't be free to live your life as you choose to, and you don't have liberty anymore, they may be happy for that for a short period of time. But once the balance turns, and the balance can turn, and then people want to go back to say, well, if you're wearing a red shoe on a Thursday, you're not allowed to eat or to have gas. And that's basically what this is coming down to. These things can flip, and which is why our Constitution and our form of government is so perfect. The way we got there may have been imperfect. We may have limped along, but we've changed, and that's what's wonderful about our government. It's able to change, and it changes because we're
So that's the mechanisms we need to use to make the changes going forward, right? I mean, instead of, threat.
And bullying.
Mhm.
And I find it ironic. I mean, weren't these the kids that we made special films, anti-bullying films for, to say stop the bullying? But this seems to be what they're all about. It's very scary.
Right. I was out there Saturday when we did the support the police march, and we got surrounded, and it was not pretty. These people were, professional agitators ready and dressed for war. These kids, they got to be careful because, be careful what you ask for because you might just get it.
Yeah.
Because if they get what they're asking, they won't be able to do exactly what they're doing.
I saw a video of you get your phone slapped out of your hand.
Oh, 100%. I got slapped. They threw throw up on us. It was a Marty Golden, but they were attacking 75-year-old people. We had 84-year-old women out there, and these young kids are attacking them. And the worst thing is, it gets twisted of how it was us causing the problem. An 84-year-old woman and a 75-year-old guy didn't start no problem. They didn't come with chains. They didn't come with helmets and gear and gas masks and armor. They didn't. We marched. Little sign. Support our police. Back to blue.
Well, they tried to do the same thing, Vito, with the Unity March. I saw Gotham reported that Back the Blue infiltrated the clergy's march, and that was totally, absolutely a 100% lie. That march was put together for the clergy invited the police to be there, but they're disseminating propaganda and disinformation to try to make it look like we were doing something wrong.
And on the news, I saw they call the pro police protests. We weren't protesting; we were supporting. They were protesting. They put the problem on the bridge. They hit the cop in the head with the pipe. Right. Yeah, but we're walking with bishops and ministers. And the black bishop and ministers. It was peaceful. It was great. You had cops. You had guys, people in suits, old people, young people, black, Spanish. I was on the front line with that march, and it was a peaceful march in support of the. Basically the basic message: unity in the community. Let's come together. It's back to blue, because those black ministers and those black bishops, they understand the most important thing in their areas, in their community, is police. Police save lives of their parishioners.
That's right. So John F. Manning has joined us, and he's asking Vito, does the anti-American left have too much say regarding school and university curriculums? Many American history courses and textbooks have nothing but bad things to say about us. Can the education establishment be forced to open up?
Oh, wow.
That's a deep question.
It is an absolute great question.
And we know our state curriculum, right, has gone far away, Vito.
Yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
The kids are going into school and they're basically being fed all this very left-leaning thoughts and processes, and I know when I went to school back in the 70s, it began then. Now you're taught all of this very lefty stuff, and those kids that were with me, they became the professors now. So you're in your second generation of that. Can we force it? I don't know if we can force it. I don't know if we should force anything, but I think it should be equal on how it gets on the curriculums. The silencing of freedom of speech is right now a big problem on the campuses. Anybody that leans a little bit conservative or a little bit right, you saw what they did in Berkeley, where they rioted They stopped the protests. They stopped the lecturer from speaking. They beat up a conservative journalist. You can't stop free speech, and this is what they're asking. And be careful, like I said, be careful what you ask for, because their free speech may get stopped if somebody else doesn't like it, if they get what they want.
Well, I guess the thing that I would want to know, Vito, I mean, you're going to be in the Senate, and now it's just been unveiled by Governor Cuomo that the 1619 project will be part of the New York State curriculum. And I mean, this is written by basically a Marxist professor who wants us to apologize for America owning slaves, or America being built on the back of slaves. And it burns me up to know that we are going to just accept this, right? Just put this as part of the curriculum because the governor said so. We already have so many parts of the curriculum removed. Our kids are not taught civics anymore, right? They don't know what's going on with their local government. They're not taught about it. The history of America is limited. They do teach about European history, but even that's limited. They don't teach cursive handwriting anymore. So if a kid can't even sign a contract, in cursive anymore. My grandson panicked the first time he was asked to sign his name, and he goes to Zavarian, and he was asked to sign the contract for Zavarian, and he's like, "Ma, I don't know cursive." And now he went to a Catholic school and through public school, so they didn't teach him that. The math with the core curriculum is a mess. Parents can't help their kids. Vito, we need sensible people like you to go to Albany and tell the governor, enough. We need our kids to learn what it takes to be in business, right, and to work and your business perspective. What would you like to see done with that curriculum?
Right. I think the common sense approach to learning. History is history. You can't unring a bell. To cancel culture, our culture, it's everybody's culture is wrong. You learn from your good past, and you learn from your mistakes in your past. And now they want to cancel. I know we're all Italians, so they want to cancel Christopher Columbus, one of the few things the Italians could hold on to, and they're tearing down statues and throwing them in the river. It doesn't quite make sense. Keep history as it is. Whether it's good or whether it's bad, and what we don't really know, because a lot of history has been canceled, that we don't know a lot of the stuff that's coming out now thanks to the internet and people that have big mouths with their little podcasts and blogs and everything. There's a lot of history that was wiped out, that was just coming to light, right now.
Yeah, you mentioned Columbus, and I'm Italian American, and the Columbus statue was an apology to the Italian people when they hung the most amount of single culture at one time. Right. Not comparing it to anybody, not 11 people were lynched, and that statue was an apology. Right. And they're taking away our apology. It's upsetting.
People don't realize that's history that went away. Yeah, the most amount of people ever lynched with a noose at one time were Italians in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And was erased.
People don't realize that there were Irish slaves in the 1600s that were kidnapped and brought to all over the world. The Vikings had slaves. The Egyptians had the Jews as slaves. I mean, the Italians were slaves to the Vikings.
The railroads were built by the Chinese. They may not have been called slaves, but they sure got treated like slaves.
Yeah, they got treated like that.
Slavery was a way of life in the world, for thousands of years. And I need to confirm this, but somebody sent me a historical article that there was basic slavery of the Europeans being taken to Africa up until the 1940s. I'm not sure if that's correct. I want to take a look into and research that a little bit. but those were white Europeans being taken into slavery in Africa. So slavery, ended in U.S. in 1865, but apparently, and unconfirmed, I wanted to do the research, up to the 1940s.
Well, it's going on today, Vito. Listen, we know damn well that there is an underground industry of sex trading going on where women and young boys, whether they're from Iran or Iraq or China or Korea, that are being taken and used as sex slaves. If you take a look at what's going on in China right now, there are no human rights. Why is everything so cheap to be made in China? Because they're using kids. They're paying people 10 US cents, for an hour's work. I remember seeing a video, and I saw it with my own eyes. It has since come down because the Chinese government made sure they got it down. But it was a video of a baby, a little girl, 4-year-old toddler, in the street, and a truck ran her over. Right. And the truck driver put the truck in reverse and backed up, because if the girl had lived and was disabled, he would have to pay for her upkeep her entire life. But if she was dead, that was it. And and that stuff was just maybe 8 years ago. So to say that slavery doesn't exist anymore is wrong. And for those young kids that are all out there in these marches with their earpieces and their cell phones, well, chances are that cell phone that's in your ear was made by somebody who was only getting 10 cents 10 cents an hour to do it. So you gotta use your head. And that's what we're not teaching in school. And going back to Manning's commentary, I mean, the only thing I can think of as a way for balance to come to some of these institutions is that those people that donate to them have to be pressed and told, if you don't agree with this anti-American agenda that these professors are teaching, then stop funneling your money to these universities. Yep. Let's start funneling money to, how about some vocational schools? Right. How about preparing kids to go to work? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing, Vito? Getting kids ready to have a career and work?
That's what we're supposed to be doing, but right now it's it's easy to take free. It's easier to stay home right now. We're not teaching our kids responsibility. We're not teaching them respect. We're not teaching them how to go to work, how to have a career. We're going backwards right now, I feel, in this country.
Yeah, we have to learn a mutual respect for views that aren't our own views, and talk about it. We forgot about that. We forgot how to do it.
Yeah. Well, we're not allowed to discuss. The interesting thing is, I have the friends that I keep, the people I go to dinner with, the people that I keep company with on a regular basis, run the spectrum of nationalities and religions, and sex, whether they're transvestite or gay or men, women. So I keep a very broad group of friends, and I break bread with them. It's not acquaintances; they are my friends, and we have the hard conversations about race. We have those hard conversations about what has happened to them in the past, and these kids don't seem to want to have those hard conversations. They don't want to teach each other through those conversations. They want to silence people. They want to erase it.
100% correct. You can't say anything. You get shouted down, you get called a racist. It's unbelievable. No, they don't want to hear it at all. Even the grown-ups, the older people, they just don't want to hear it.
Yeah. And Vito, you were in the music industry, right? There was a time when the music industry was predominantly Jewish, right? And the record labels were controlled by one nationality. And then you saw the evolution of the industry, right?
Yeah. Back in the day, it was mostly Jewish operated. Then a couple of Italians infiltrated, like a Tommy Mottola and a few other great guys. And when the hip hop world came, they started hiring, African American kids, and I was on the forefront of the hip hop world. It's a funny story. I had the hottest club. We were doing all the big radio station concerts. We had hit records, and there was what they call A&R, artist and repertoire, at a major company, and there was a consulting position there. And I called the guy who I helped get the gig, and I says, "Listen," he was black, and I says, "Could I, listen, it's nobody more qualified than me, to work with you guys." And he looked at me and he says, "I love you. You're white." And now it's very, very different in there.
But you accepted it, right? You said, "I love you, but you're white. You can't work for us." And you moved on.
It's good. It's all good. He's my buddy. I love him, and move on.
Yeah. And because you're in marketing, you understood his point of view. You didn't run and file a complaint that there was bias, that there was racial bias, right?
No.
You didn't ask for $20 million because your life was ruined.
That didn't exist back in those days.
And that's what these kids do, though. That's what's happening in this world now. We're looking for the angle for when we've been victimized, right. and how are we going to get our share because we're victims of something. And if we're not victims of anything, they're dredging up. I mean, this is the most, in my opinion, it's the most insane thing ever. We're talking about paying reparations to people who were never slaves, and the people that are supposed to pay the reparations are people who never owned slaves.
Right.
It's insanity.
All of our grandparents were in Italy back then, so
Yeah.
Like I said, right? Like right now, we just need to get back to respecting each other, common sense. Let's stop all the nonsense. Just get together and work together. That's where we want to go.
So let's talk about some of the things that you do need to address up in Albany. Let's talk about property taxes. Let's talk about where they're going to get some money. Post COVID. What's going to happen here? We see an exodus out of New York.
Yeah.
You and I have seen it before, Vito, because it happened in our lifetime in the 70s.
Right.
Do you feel like it's happening again?
Oh, 100%. Everybody wants to run for the hills because now with COVID, there's no money coming into the state, which means they have to go and see where they're going to get it from. So who's left? The working class people are going to get hammered with taxes. The homeowners are going to get hammered with taxes, and people are going to be leaving in droves. They I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, but they want to attack like the millionaires. Millionaires could go anywhere they want. They don't have to stay here. You got to be smart at what you do. In business, a lot of it's not what you make. The most important part is what you spend. So you have to be very careful on what you're spending. You have de Blasio and his wife with $1 billion missing. Where's the $1 billion?
That would have helped COVID a lot, wouldn't it?
That would fill a nice little hole. You could refund the police and take that $1 billion that Charlene and Bill de Blasio that's missing in action. Let's use that $1 billion for the programs that they want. That's common sense,
Yeah. Well, the fact that your opponent, the sitting senator, is a supporter of Bill de Blasio is just amazing to me. So, I mean, that he has supported the same things that de Blasio has supported. I don't understand how it's palatable to the people of Brooklyn. I don't understand how it's palatable to anybody because, Brooklyn is our largest borough. It is probably our most infamous borough, our most famous borough, especially for food and entertainment. It's just crazy. This guy's a true blue de Blasio fan, huh?
Oh, 100%. Him and de Blasio share a lot of the same beliefs. And, if you don't like it, November 3rd, you go out and you vote against him. You vote for Vito Bruno.
Yeah. I think that the people that watch this show and the people who are property owners in New York City recognize that they have the power to bring back sanity. And the way to bring back sanity is to vote people into office who are going to actually get things done. I mean, I like to say, and I think it's true, that de Blasio fiddled while New York City burned, and that's what's happening here. The city is burning down around us. Morally, it's burning down around us literally.
Yeah, in New York City, the police are demoralized. People are upset. Everybody's afraid. It's absolutely probably the worst time ever to live in New York City. And it's the greatest city in the world, or not. And
so tell us, do you think? What do you think is going to happen with Broadway being closed? What do you think is going to happen in the future in this post-COVID world? We saw in South Dakota that over the weekend, South Dakota, by the way, we ought to study South Dakota, right? Because they had a meat manufacturing plant that was riddled with COVID. They had to shut it down. They cleaned it up. The governor said, okay, everybody go back to work. Use your brains. Here's the CDC rules and regulations. Wear a mask if you don't, or if you want to. Stand social distance. And result is that they have very, very few cases of COVID there. But now, in New York City, we have a mayor who basically doesn't want to open up our schools. We have a governor who is talking about rolling back, the openings. You're in the industry. And that New York State and city depends on tourism, right? I mean, they go out to concerts. They want to see concerts. They want to see shows. They want to come here. And what do you think that de Blasio and Cuomo can manage to bring people back? Can make people want to visit New York again?
I don't know if it's going to be de Blasio or Cuomo. I think the science and how the media portrays the COVID thing, it's going to be whether or not we have a vaccine that's real. Also, the thing that we need to really get out there is they know how to treat COVID much better now than they did 4 months ago.
Yeah, they sure do.
So less people are dying because they know how to treat it better. And the strain may be becoming less fatal strain. So science is one thing, You touched about the schools, saying kids going back to school. We were talking to the parents. The 2-day-a-week thing in, 2-3 days out, this hybrid thing, people are really against that. In terms of the entertainment business, they've been devastated. You have people that, when you're in entertainment, it's gig work. If you're a waiter or you're a performer on a stage, it's by the gig. So a lot of these people are not eligible for a lot of this stimulus stuff. So these people are dying. Promoters are dying, stagehands, waiters, waitresses, bartenders. The restaurant industry is pretty much destroyed at this point, even more so than the entertainment people, because if you have a gig, you're just not working. If you have a restaurant with $30,000 rent and you're out for 4 months, now you have a huge bill to catch up on, Yeah. And you can't ask the landlord to eat that, It's we have a huge problem. A lot of restaurants are going to go out. A lot of theaters are going to go out. A lot of the smaller promoters are not going to come back. It's devastating to the economy of New York. I think over 300,000 people are employed in the restaurant, entertainment, and nightclub business in the New York metro area.
So do you recommend a tax cut, an incentive? I mean, what do you recommend when you get to the legislature? You know, how are you going to attract these businesses, to keep them here or to help them get through what has happened, in New York? Because the Democrats, we know, are going to say, let's make up the deficit by raising everybody's taxes.
Right. We're going to put together a legitimate, comprehensive plan to address how to deal with small businesses, and I'm going to take special interest in the entertainment sites. That's where I come from.
And that's important, to have a businessman create a plan to help small businesses. I don't know that that's ever been done in the New York State legislature before. So that would be a really unique thing, that somebody who actually knows how to create jobs will actually talk about helping the state to create jobs. That'd be, and know what the hell he's saying. That's something that we look forward to, definitely.
Well, I'm looking forward to going.
Okay, so we have about 3.5 minutes left. Tell us what we didn't ask and what we don't know still about Vito Bruno.
What you need to know is that you have to go to my website, BrunoNY.com, and donate. That's what, because campaigns are wonderful money, and we could use the funds. So we're being out fundraised. The Republicans nationally, they're outraising us. And the thing I can tell you is, in the last few elections, the amount of people that actually came out to vote was a pretty low turnout. I know for the mayoral election, the numbers were very low. I think you guys were involved. How many people came out for that? 18%?
The mayor's race?
Yeah.
A million voters came out. De Blasio got just over 700,000. Nicole got like 380,000.
How many people? It was a small turnout, right?
Small turnout. People. Our message to the people is: get out and vote. Just don't sit around and complain and point fingers, and just get out and vote. Do something. Vote. You don't want to run for office? Don't, because this is a hard, nasty job. I got to tell you, get out and vote. You have absentee ballots, and all kinds of ways. Early voting. You can vote. Get out. Have your voice be heard. Do it, or else you're going to wind up in a worse mess than you are right now.
Yeah.
And because we have a presidential election this year, so usually the presidential turnout is high, but people forget to go down the line to vote for the judges and the Congress people and the Senate and the Assembly, and you're down almost near the bottom, right? You're one above Assembly.
Yeah, I think I'd be probably below Nicole for Congress. You got to vote for Nicole as well. And we have Michael Tanousis running as well, and out here we have, we have a really strong lineup that we need to support.
So for anybody watching out there, recognize that this year Governor Cuomo is going to send ballots, absentee ballot. I'm not sure if it's just the application or the ballot, but they're going to send you a piece of mail saying if you want to vote by mail, sign up to do so. So voting is going to be easier than it ever was before. And as Vito said, there's early voting, and then you can still vote at the polls. But if you don't vote, don't bitch.
That's
because
right.
there's a Senate. There is a chance to restore the majority to the New York State Senate. And what that means is that there will be a balance of power. there will be Republicans in the Senate and Democrats in the Assembly, and a Democrat governor. And when there's a balance of power, there is debate, and debate makes good government. So
protection for the people.
yeah. So Vito Bruno, it would be our pleasure to see a businessman in that seat. Marty Golden was a businessman, and he really did well in that seat, and he did well for the people in the 22nd. Be nice to see that return to a business-minded individual who understands that we just can't keep on bleeding citizens dry for our own personal agenda. So, Vito, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate all the help and support. You guys are terrific.
Okay, Bruno for New York.com. Okay, very good. George, on Monday, Sal Calise is joining us. Sal Calise is Best Ad Promo. You might know him, Vito. He does a lot of lawn signs and campaign buttons and posters for candidates around the state. But Sal's been doing that for many, many years, and he's been inside politics in New York State from the governor to the assembly. So he's going to join us on Monday, and we're going to talk about the changes that have taken place in New York State over the years.
That's awesome. I look forward to that show. Thanks for watching, everybody. And like Vito said, vote and accept the winner. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.